Hello, my name is Alex Weber, and I'm going to present information on QlikSense ETL and visualization tools that myself, Christian Hodges, and Eric Mayo researched and looked up and created this presentation. And so an overview of what we're going to go through today. We'll just go to the background, what this tool is, how I was designed, all that stuff, cost and platforms, how much it's going to cost you to actually use the tool, where you can use the tool at, how it's going to work. We'll go over some key features. We'll do an installation and integration demo. So we'll show you, how you can get data into there and how you can display that data and how you can actually use the tool in a basic sense. We're not going to go into too much detail as that could take hours to show all the features this has. And then we'll just do an overview of all the benefits and limitations of this thing and give you a conclusion on our thoughts on how this tool performs. And so this was created in 1993. As businesses grew and had more and more data, they needed a way to be able to build these dashboards that could automatically update and reports that can be automatically created, and you need to be able to extract data from all different types of sources and combine it in all one place so that higher level management and other people who are consuming this data can make decisions based on that data. And so this is very similar to Tableau, Power BI, some of the industry standards. This has a lot of similarities, a lot of differences. you know, the developers put their own twist on it, whatever they want. It's comprised of the two main components, which is the hub, which is where you're going to find all of your sheets, all of your data sources, all of that stuff, and everything you can get to, and then the management console, which will allow you to control access to all the different things, control access to who access to the tool, who can look at certain data sources, all that good stuff. And the architecture goes through five main points. Which is the proxy, which is going to be your connection data and your connection details. You got the engine, which is going to process that connection, pull the data in. You have the schedule, which is going to schedule jobs. So whether you want to create a report and you want to make that every day, something like that, or whatever it is you might want to do. Repository, which will hold all of the stuff that you create, which will be part of the schedule. That'll be the data sources that you're using. That'll be the reports that you make. That'll be the sheets that you make. That'll be the presentations that you make. All that stuff. And then the applications, which are the tools themselves to create the reports and applications and sheets and all that stuff. So there's three main versions. You can get the desktop version, which is free. You can use that individually. Has all of the essential stuff, creating the charts, pulling in data, linking to multiple data sources. But ultimately, it's just incomplete because it's just a free version for mainly for people who want to start integrating with their business and figure out if they're actually going to want to put out the money to actually use the tool in a full business way. And so then you have the next version, which is the cloud version. This is a cloud-based server, so you don't have to worry about having big beefy computer, big beefy server. It's going to do it all in the cloud on their servers, and that's going to be $15 per user per month. So small businesses, you can still keep it relatively cheap, whereas the price is going to really grow for larger businesses. And then you have the enterprise version, which is going to be your premium version. That's designed for large corporations with a ton of data, with a ton of users, a bunch of people consuming it. They have a bunch of different data sources they're bringing in. They have a bunch of different reports they need to generate, and they need to, you know, collaborate on things. And this is going to give you all of their analytic features, all of their tools that this ETL tool actually delivers to you. And that's going to be $1,500 per token. So you get a token, you can have it on one server, and you can deploy this over multiple servers. So you can get multiple tokens depending on how big your company and data gets. So the key features of this tool are the drag and drop visualizations is the main one. That what is going to allow the lower level, less technical users to really get into this tool and start using it. Because all you have to do is drag a chart, drag a column to that chart, and you can easily display visualizations for quick analysis of data. And most tools have that, so this is going to be the most important feature for their thing. But then you have a bunch of other stuff, do various other things, like the data engine, which is going to be something that processes your data. You got connections to multiple data sources, so whether you're pulling data from Facebook, or whether you're pulling data from a database, or whether you're pulling data from an Azure database, or whether you're pulling data from whatever you're pulling it from, it's going to have most of those connections in there. Then you have this storytelling functionality, which is nice because most of the world still sadly runs on PowerPoint, and everyone wants to make a PowerPoint when they similar to this, where they're going to give their information. And so this kind of gives you a built-in functionality so that you don't have to worry about transferring data in and out of a tool into PowerPoint. And I'll go over a little bit more of that later too. This is an interesting thing that they've integrated into this service. Then you have your enterprise level security, which is, the basic who accesses the tool, who accesses what data is visible to what people, all that good stuff. You got the smart search, which will allow you to search through your data. Their AI will give you suggestions on charts to make with your data. Same thing with the real-time analytics. I mean, that's just going to be able to provide analytics on your data real-time on the cloud from whatever device you're on, so you can always see this data. Then you got your APIs, their standard rapid development environment, so that allows multiple people to get in an environment and develop these charts quickly, so you don't have to worry about slow turnaround times if you need to report within that day. And lastly, you have the data scheduling, which is becoming standard in all these tools as well, which will allow you to schedule your refreshing and your report creation so that your reports only created when you want them to create, so you don't have to worry about having half data in there. So like we've talked about in class, if you have data that gets more complete over time because you have, say, returns happening, or you're waiting for feedback on a product or something like that, that allows you to schedule it so you know that when you're reaching those points when your data is going to be updated, you can schedule the report to refresh then and not have to worry about having half your data updated and half your data not updated when you're creating these reports. And so intro into storytelling, it's basically just another version of PowerPoint, but that really allows you to integrate your reporting into it. So all these reports and apps and sheets that you make to show your data, you can integrate them directly with this presenting tool. So you don't have to worry about exporting things. You don't have to worry about embedding them in a website or embedding them in your own tool. You kind of integrate them all directly into the presentation. So therefore, you can have them update when you want, and you can not have to worry about constantly changing all of your data sources into that PowerPoint. It also provides snapshot functionality, so if you just want to look at a data point then, you don't have to worry about importing a sheet into your storytelling tool and being scared it's going to update by the time you give your presentation. It's going to be the snapshot of what it was then. And you can also have multiple snapshots. So if you were tracking data or a chart over a week, you can take a snapshot every day and then present those snapshots by the end of the week to show how your chart has evolved. And you don't have to worry about making some complex 3D time-based chart. And lastly, you can use data insights to turn these discoveries into a story. So you can, use all of the insight tools that they have to kind of create a story of how you went through the data and how you came to the conclusion about the data that you came to. And that's all directly integrated with the tool and is a nice capability. Some other useful features they have, so like Power BI, like some other things, they have their typical measures and expressions, and these expressions can extend the power of these measures to quantify more complicated features. So if you have something that requires multiple steps of math, but you don't want to include all that data in your database, all that math in your database, and create extra columns, you can just make an expression that will analyze the data and then put it into the chart. And so, this will allow you to do a bunch of things, such as, add multiple filters to one chart. So, if you have a chart where you want to display two things that are filtered slightly differently, that maybe use different values from different columns to do their calculations, you can just make a measure to create that data, and then you can add it to your chart. You don't have to worry about that filter running over on any other data you might add to that chart. You can do, easy things like rolling sums, so you can look at, sums as time goes on. You can look at, you know, operations between columns. So if you want to take the difference between one column and another column, you can make that a measure. You don't have to worry about storing that in another column. And, anything else that you might want to actually do some math on your chart or on your data source itself. And then you have your associated data engine, which I talked about a little bit before, but this enables the end users to see how the data sets are correlated. And it works in unison with their smart search feature so that, the AI as well as people can more easily find attributes that are going to correlate between data sets. And so it's going to speed up your turnaround time when you're trying to uh, produce these reports that someone may be looking for to try to make some business decisions that may be time sensitive. And it doesn't matter where it's stored, it will bring it all in. You'll be able to do it all within the tool. And so just to start, you know, once you get into the tool, first thing you're going to do is just start with the data. You can upload a data file. You can connect to all these different data sources. You can see a couple of them live in here. You have MongoDB. You can have a Microsoft SQL Server. You can have, SharePoint get in there. You can have other cloud services get in there. You can have Facebook integration. You have Twitter integration. You can have MySQL Enterprise. You can have Amazon Web Services. Basically anything you need. There are some caveats where some of the open source databases don't have data sources available. So, for example, we cannot use MySQL or MariaDB open source versions to integrate into our thing. We had to export to a CSV to put in there. But I mean, as this is a mainly enterprise tool, that shouldn't be a problem because you're not going to be usually running these open source databases. You're going to be running enterprise level databases that you're going to pay for. So, but this tool, wouldn't be good for a smaller business that may be hosting its own MariaDB or something. So now I'm going to go through a quick live example where I'm going to show uploading some data, manipulating it, creating the relationships between a couple tables, and then using that data to generate a chart or a couple charts and apply some filters to it. And then I'm going to go and show how you can integrate it with their storytelling feature. So when you first open up the cloud, this is what you're going to see. You're going to have your quick start to get started analyzing your data. You're going to have some demo apps to see, what you can do with the tool, get some ideas. You're going to have some videos to show you, quick ways to get started doing certain features. You're going to have to see what's been recently updated, list your apps, list your data, all that stuff. And so I'm just going to go over a quick way to, create a new app and get that data analyzed. So you can come up here, you can hit add new to make a little app, name whatever you want. You can define it in a space if you want to have multiple spaces for different types of apps, give a description, give it tags so you can search if you have a ton of different apps that you're going to be creating. So after you got your little test app here, you can create some data sources. And here you can, connect to any kind of database you might have, whether, Mongo, all this different stuff. You can use some existing connections you may have. They have a list of data files that they keep on the server, so I already have these. So I'm just gonna add these to the list. You can, tell what the denominator is, set how everything is gonna end up working. You can choose to import whatever columns you want. For example, like we don't need this column, so I could just take it right out. Hit next, and it's gonna add the data. So now we have that first data set imported. Go ahead right away and we can see that we can either explore the data or have a question about the data, and that will allow you to, if you don't have an idea of what you're trying to do with this data, this is going to give you some advanced AI techniques to be able to kind of give insights on the data, and it's going to help you accelerate that production process. But for now, we're just going to go to build a sheet. And so here you can see this is where you can start just looking at, you know, general information about your table. So if I just want to see how many customers I have a day, it's real easy. You just drag your data over, drag your customer over, and once the chart is done loading, loads in all the data, it's going to give you a quick chart to be able to see that. So here you can see, it gives you customer numbers, but we want to see how many customers they have per day. You can come over here and you can add it to measures instead. And this is going to give you a count of how many customers per day. You can see good variation. Like we're supposed to have, these upper ones are probably the weekends when we get a little more customers. And so, but now we might want to say, look at specific products. We don't know, how to analyze by SKU because SKU is just a number. So here, if we want to add, say, the products table, come down here and just add more data. And now if we choose that products table, import everything we want to import. We can see that now in our data manager, we have two tables. And so normally this isn't really going to do anything because they're not linked. Final purchase is not going to be able to see the products. So we're going to want to create a link here. And you can either just drag one table to the other. It gives you a nice helpful green circle to show you everything's linked up properly by their suggestions. Or you can come over right here and it'll give you a bunch of recommendations on how to link your tables together. So here, you can just say apply and get that SKU link hooked up right away. So now when we go back over to the sheet, after we refresh, we should be able to see that we can use the product's information as well in these charts. And now that our data load is complete, we can see now we have all of these other columns from the product table to be able to work with too. And so say we want to look at, how many of a specific product was sold each day. So you can do the same thing where you can just take your date, drag it over here, and you can say we want to go by item type. Drag that right onto there as well. And then we can take our SKU, because that's what we're going to be sorting, or that's what we're going to be counting by, drop that into the measures. We can see how much of each one was sold each day. But once again, this is kind of, a lot of information, so you might want to filter this down a bit. So over here, you have all these other things you could do, one of which is charts. And you can see you have a filter pane here. Now if we drag this in here and add, say, our item type to that, now when we hit done editing to show that we've created all the stuff we want, we can come down here and we can just say select milk. And now all of our charts are filtered by milk. You can see that we have this chart here. This one's actually wrong because I did the wrong type of count there. But you can see that it's automatically filtered everything. If you want to edit again, so you can see I made a mistake in this, I did count. Should be a count of just SKU. You can just remove the SKU. And now you can see how many milks we sold per day. Or you can look over here and look at this chart to see how many milks we sold per day. And you can do that with anything. I mean, we can add more stuff to the filter. We can add, another filter for date. Just drag that over here. It automatically created a chart, but all we have to do is drag our filter pane onto that and replace it. We can see now that we have a date filter. So when you're in here, you can choose a specific date. You can just filter your chart down there, or come up to the search and you could say, I only want to see things that are, in the first month of the year. So you can just do a less than 2020. You can see here we have all of our, just for the first month of January, you can see our sales for this milk. And then, say we want to display this. Now we want to go look at how we can add this to their storytelling feature, which is basically their presentation tool. And so here's just, looks exactly, almost exactly PowerPoint, not as powerful, not as many crazy things to do, but it's not really for that. And so we want to, add, this chart to it. Come over here to this chart, you can create a snapshot. So you can just take a snapshot of there, give it a little description, whatever you want, month of January sales. Milk. Save that. Now when we come over to storytelling, we can add that snapshot right here to our chart. And now we can have this in our presentation. We can add a text box, for a title or whatever. Say, and now if we do a bunch of these, we can create a whole presentation and present to management, present to anyone who's making decisions. So that's just a general overview of it. There's obviously a lot more you can do. If you go back to the data manager, they have a ton of different, crazy stuff you can do. So if you go to the editor, you can, set exactly how it reads things and all these things. Um, you can do your abbreviations, your day names. This one's going to be all auto generated, so this actually you can link it in. So if you need to do more complicated things, you can, create a script that's going to load in data similar to this in a much more complicated way. If you need to do advanced matches or something like that, you will as well as all your business logic. So you can make a business logic map which can look at the model and automatically deliver decisions to people based on how certain things happen. And so here you can see all your hierarchies, your behaviors, calendar periods, all this stuff, and that's going to give you a bunch of more options to even use in your tool. And so that's a good overview of the basics of using this tool. Obviously, it's way more powerful and there's a lot more that I can do, but I think that's a good overview of how this tool is actually used. So now we see the demo. I'm going to go over the benefits and limitations that we saw when using this tool. That would be helpful in deciding whether or not you're going to integrate it with your business or not. First thing, like most tools today, very easy to import these data sets. All of this, a lot of drag and drop files, or they have a ton of different database connections that you can get to, and they have a ton of different other types of connections that you can get to, like I've talked about before. It's also going to automatically generate a lot of potential charts with their advanced AI system, which is nice because when you select that field and you just want to get some quick insight on it, AI is going to help you there. It's going to get quicker turnaround when someone gives you a new data set that you're trying to analyze. You can, really separate your data and create these individual apps that are going to hone in on whether it's parts of the data you want to hone in on these apps or anything else you might want to analyze in individual spots that you want to keep separate from each other. So whether it's different businesses, different types of businesses, different aspects of the business, it's going to allow you to compartmentalize those and make sure that they don't bleed into each other and that they're where you want them to be. And overall, it's going to save you a lot of time than just generating them in Excel. But there are a few limitations. There's less functionality when it comes to customizing the charts. So, a lot of people these days will, when they see a bland chart, they're not gonna look at it when it's not gonna pop out to their eye. Whereas, when you Excel has all these features to catch, people's eyes so that they actually want to look at the chart and try to understand it. And it's got a pretty difficult startup time. There's a lot of terminology you have to learn, and you have to learn the path of the data and how they want you to navigate through their tool and how they want you to use their tool. So, in Excel, it's real easy. Plop the data in, make a chart. Power BI, I've used that before. Real easy. Pop the data in, make a chart. This one, you got to go through a couple steps, create some things that they want you to get this startup so that you can get into their ETL process and use the tool how they think is most effectively. So they kind of force you into that, but it's it can be difficult for some new users. It took us a little bit of time to even figure out how to use the tool. So the final thoughts on it, it's definitely a lot more customizable and powerful than some tools like Power BI. They have a lot more developer features, complex data management. They have a lot more steps you can do where you can have a report that generates, and when a certain number from that report gets over a certain value, it sends a message in Teams, and then and Microsoft tools allow you to do that too. There's actually a lot of Microsoft tools that allow for this kind of stuff, but individually you're going to have to um, link these multiple tools together. You're not going to be able to just do it in Power BI. You're not going to be able to, I'm not sure about the other ones, but Power BI I have experience in. I know you can't just do this all in Power BI. You're going to have to connect it to Microsoft. I forget the name of it, but connect it to other Microsoft tools in order to get this kind of, progressional system to, automatically look over data and alert you when things don't look correct. Um, so there is that startup learning curve, but that's going to allow for the more complex data management and the more open ability to use the tool. But this complexity not always good. It's not intuitive. So if you have a company where you don't have experts in this tool, and maybe you have a high turnover or something like that, this is not going to be good for that because they're going to have to look through all this documentation. They're going to have to constantly do this, um, and it's really not going to be easy for someone to just get in there and use the tool. But once they figure out how to do that, it's a very powerful tool and it's very good. But I mean, in today's world, a lot of things is delivering data now. Simple and simplicity is always good. Documentation is very extensive, so I mean you can find anything you want in there. It's very well written. There's a lot of information on all the different aspects of the tool. They don't really give examples though, so you're going to kind of have to like read the documentation and then make your own examples so you can figure out how to actually use something. They're not going to give you a ton of examples, and sometimes it's nice to be able to just copy, a line of code that's going to give you a measure or an expression that you want. And I mean, really, like all ETL tools, they're going to force you into their idea of how they think you should go through the data and how they think your progression through analyzing the data should be. It's, you have to put your data in, you have to make your app, you have to make your sheet, you have to make your dashboard, you got to make your presentation, all that stuff, and you have to do that all the way they want you to do it, which is always a disadvantage of the ETL tool, because at some point they have to decide a way for the user to do it, and you're going to be forced into that. Whereas if you kind of custom code all this stuff with Python code or with SSRs reports or something, you're going to have a lot more ability just to analyze the data how you want to do it and do this stuff that how you want to do it. And so, I mean, overall, it's a great tool. It's going to be good if you have a large business that you're going to need to quickly turn around reports, and you're going to need to handle tons of different data, tons of different data sources, and um, you know, as with the price suggests that it's going to be for that enterprise level. And so, if you're in an enterprise, it's not a bad tool. It's kind of outside of the ecosystem of a lot of other tools. So advantages to other tools is they're integrated with systems you're already using, specifically Microsoft. It's everywhere. But if you're looking for more specific features, this may be your thing. Thank you for listening. I hope you got a good idea of what this tool is like.